Hey, what's up guys? PainDeViande here. As promised, here is my Fafnir's video. It will not be a tutorial video, for the record. It's not going to be a guideline on how to play the character from an SPL point of view. It's going to be instead a video about Fafnir's Skillcap, which will include Fafnir's kit, Fafnir's laning phase, team compositions to build around Fafnir, and the early game weaknesses versus the late game strength of Fafnir, and how to play around these two things. So let's start with his passive, Endless Greed. The reason why I'm bringing this one up is because the additional gold you're getting means that if you're farming efficiently, you get extremely rewarded. This is a quantity buff for the character, which means that if you farm efficiently, but you don't farm a high amount of camps and a high amount of waves, you won't get rewarded as much as if you rotate around the map, clearing camps, and getting as many minion kills as possible. Please also note that the passive applies to minions being targeted by tower shots. I am not sure if that is on purpose, but if a minion wave goes into your tower and it's already dying and you think you can only clear the archers before the melee dies, well, stay in range of the melees because you will get an extra 4 gold alongside the experience. Fafnir also gets a protection buff up to 30 magical and physical armor when he has up to 1,000 gold in his bank. Which means that when you're going back to base, you don't necessarily want to buy an item. You might want to conserve your gold so you can come back later on and buy a big chunk of an item if said item doesn't provide more than 30 protections. I'm looking at the first tier of Mantle of Discord / Spirit Robe, which I totally forgot what the name would be. But this item provides, I believe, 10 protections of both physical and magical, and costs around 700 gold, a little bit more than that, I believe. Which means that conserving that 1,000 gold in your bank grants you 3 times set items worth of defensive stats. Also, you might want to spend your gold despite the protection buff you're getting from your passive. The reason you would do so would be that if you will farm the map and go back to 1,000 gold before the next significant objective fighting, let's say as an example, you know Goldfear will spawn in 3 minutes. So you have enough time to farm up to 1,000 gold. You might want to spend that gold right now so you can start farming and amass back your passive so you can combine the new item you just bought with your protection buff from passive as you go into the next fight. Consciously making the decision to buy or not buy an item is part of the high level decision making ability of a support. His second ability, Curse Strength, is very hard to aim, but provides an amazing debuff in Dragon Form. So when you use the ability in Dragon Form, you reduce a target's protections by 40%. It also applies a dot, and can be combined with one of the durability to combo stunlock somebody while guaranteeing the application of said debuff on target. Coerce gives a 50% attack speed buff and a 25% extra damage based off the target's power. It also becomes an AoE buff in Dragon Form, which means that you can stack these buff on your whole team in Dragon Form for an amazing objective control. It also procs in Dwarven Form along with a Dragon Form on a single target character, which means that if you're going for an objective, you and an ADC together with nobody else because you want to sneak an objective, you may buff them in Dwarven Form, ult, then buff them in Dragon Form for increase additional power or damage and increased attack speed. It's a little bit harder to exploit with uncoordinated teammates, which makes it an amazing high-end skill level ability. Fafnir's Leap's Desire becomes a stun in Dragon Form, and as I've mentioned before, it's an amazing setup to the Curse Strength. His ultimate, Draconic Corruption, is one of the most efficient zoning done in the game right now. It also grants CC immunity and a damage immunity as a form of counterplay measure while team fighting. Jumping into laning phase, Fafnir's buff clear doesn't hit bow camps as a Khepri Rising Dawn would, and has a little bit of a lower damage than, like I said, Khepri's 2 or Athena's Shield Wall. is wave clear is usually dominated by whoever gets to lane first, which means that Fafnir is extremely dependent on his ADC. If Fafnir plays with an X-Ball, going against an enemy dual lane that has great clear, such as Hui as an example, they will get late to lane and they will almost guaranteed lose lane pressure. As per any support that gets outpushed, unfortunately Fafnir is prone to being buffed and invaded early game if the lane is lost against competent players that know how to control the map. Also, if your mid lane is losing pressure side, and you are yourself too, chances are the enemy team will invade both your speed buff and your red buff on its next respawn. Also, Fafnir is extremely mana hungry in the first 10 levels, and has a very hard time casting more than 2 or 3 spells in the first dragon form fight, especially if that fight is at level 5 in lane. This is disregarded if Fafnir dominated lane, as per a situation where Fafnir would have lane pressure from level 1 to 5, and would have to use very little in the meta usage and ability casting department to guarantee lane control. Team composition wise, Fafnir works best with auto attack compositions, Chorus being extremely potent on ADCs and auto attack based characters such as Kali and Mercury, and Mage Burst such as Zeus's, Scylla's, and Vulcan's. Fafnir works also extremely well with setup for his hammer, such as Thor's Wall, Need's Root, Osiris' Slow, and even Hebo's Water Carpet. It also increases your efficiency against hard-hit opponents because of obvious reasons, such as sprinting characters, movement speed buff characters, instant dash or leap ability based character such as Ratatosker and Susanoo's. Fafnir also works extremely well with heavy setup combinations characters such as Scylla, Hui, a Soul Enter's knockup so you can combo with your teammates, etc. Where one's team can punish carries all game and also tanks mid to late game. And the reason of this is because in these phases of the game, said character will play in the front line, which means that if you ult and combo your underhanded tactics with your cursed strength, you will shred said target, and you can also buff your team with coerce to burst through the tanks, which most likely will not expect the 40% protection debuff burst coming from you and your carries. Now, speaking of Fafnir, there is a significant difference between his early game weaknesses and his late game strength, and the path in between both of them is very narrow to walk, because one mistake or 2 mistakes and chances are you instantly fall behind, and Fafnir on a lower level becomes an easy prey because of the nature of his ultimate being a long channel. When you are deforming, puts you in a very vulnerable situation, and if you cannot afford meta items, you will have a hard time casting abilities. That being said, Fafnir cannot use abilities in dragon form because of said lack of mana. It's very hard to spam your abilities from the level 1 to 10 approximately. When his dragon form expires, as I've mentioned, he becomes a very easy target, especially if it happens during a team fight in an awkward position where the enemy team is not punished for long range poking you as you are deforming. Although he is weak in the first 10 levels, if you consider these two things, he becomes a absolute monster mid to late game because of the high mana pool of his items and because of the cooldown reset of his spells when he's ulting. You may dash in, combo, use your course on one of your allies, and use your ultimate as a mean to zone the enemy team after you use your escape, and then have a new set of cooldowns and re-engage using your next set of cooldowns, which makes for an amazing transition of your first rotation of skills into the mid and late game teamfights. Fafnir also has an amazing teamfight presence because of the sheer amount of damage, CC, and utility he brings to his team without lacking set crowd control based off his damage. Fafnir has an insane amount of dots, and his auto attack in dragon form also provides a little bit of extra finishing blow, especially in these team fights where the enemy team will stack up together for a Phoenix Siege or a Gold Fury taking, and it will take the full combo of your 3, 1, auto attack, damage over time. Finally, Fafnir is amazing because he can burn through objectives alongside said team composition that is based off auto attacks or based off high burst damage. A good Fafnir will provide for his team in measures that they will control objectives, they will control fights, and they will almost guaranteed win the late game because of the nature of the character. A bad Fafnir, unfortunately though, will most likely leap in and miss the underhanded tactics because of the nature of the ability hitting only in front of you, will have a hard time lending the cursed strength because won't be able to set himself up with his own 3, and also won't be making use of his allies' crowd control to guarantee the 40% armor penetration going up with his cursed strength. Also, will have a very hard time utilizing the course efficiently, especially in games where coordinating your teammates becomes harder because of the nature of lower tier level rank games, where players tend to not want to listen to other players as much as they would for a scrim of a professional team. If you are not confident with landing Fafnir's cursed strength, unfortunately you should probably stick to another kind of character, because most of his kit's reliability comes from said cursed strength, and it's a very narrow skill shot. It's a very hard to hit skill shot, and therefore if you cannot land said ability, you will be punished heavily. So that's going to be it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to follow the channel. I will try to upload a video every now and then, especially with Chaos. I would like to start a kind of a talk show with Chaos if possible, speaking about the metagame, speaking about Harvest Studios, the SPL, the pro scene, Enemy itself as an organization, and the team, the roster swaps for the other teams, and all kinds of good stuff. So feel free to follow the channel. Feel free to give me a thumbs up on the video if you liked it. Also, if you have any constructive criticism, please feel free to comment or debate about whatever I've talked in the comment section. I will try to answer as many people as possible. If you have any questions on the squad or myself personally, feel free to ask me on ask.fm/PainDeViande. I got a set of questions that I was supposed to go over with Chaos, but it's been busy with a grill for the last week or so, and I was out the weekend, this past weekend, so I was unable to answer these questions with Chaos. But I will go and try to work on these as fast as possible and cover them, because at least 8 or 9 of them were actually really good content to talk about with Chaos, or to debate about with Chaos moving forward. So I wish you guys a very nice end of the week, and I hope that video was very informative and very interesting. Have a good one, boys.